I've got the engine cage all set up here. I've got my little step stool. This is the last time I'm going to be having to lift this engine cage up and put it back in here. So got it fully welded now and ready to go back in and actually start welding it to the frame in here now. So that's what I'm going to kind of do now. Get the thing thrown in there, get it welded up to the frame, and then I can start making the gusset tubes that are going to like go down to the other part of the frame, the bump here. I'll have to finish cleaning up the frame there a little bit. But can start tying in some gussets and getting this thing fully welded in and working on tying cage and all that type of stuff in. And then as well, get the shocks back on there, finish up bunt stops, limit straps, and then all the suspension come back off and then get finish weld. And then that stuff will be done. So yeah, anyways, let's get that thing lifted up and put in there. I've been working on these spindles, getting these steering arms and the gussets all done up. This one's pretty warm. I just finished doing the last little bit of finish passes on that. So these, that's the driver's side. We got the machine running. That's running parts in there. Some those link tabs still, I got to fire it up. I've been dialing in my program more and more and getting those starting to get a stack. I've just been running. I haven't gotten to the point of linking my G54 and G55, and I've just been loading one at a time and letting it run and kind of getting to work. Here's the other one. This one's all done up. This is the passenger side. So now those are done. I've got the pitman arm is all done up now. Let's see, that's cooled off all now. So this is all gusseted and ready to go back on the truck. So that's sitting here. This is stuff kind of now sitting ready for paint. But I'm actually getting ready to, I was gonna pull the beams off to finish. I was starting to weld the link tabs or the shock tabs up, and I was like, well, I'll pull them off and do them off the truck. But then I remembered I needed to go back and I had moved shock location, so I needed to move bumps. So I ended up just taking the bumps off. So actually, before I take these off, I do need to, I'm gonna throw the shocks back on here really quick, since everything's welded, and then get bumps figured out and limit straps figured out, get some tabs on there, and then I'll take this stuff off. Well, I got that shock on there. That was fast. I didn't end up filming a whole lot when I finished this up the other day. Back at it, and actually whipped up some bump stop pads. Started working on mounting these bumps. Didn't get a lot of it, well, any of this on film, so figured I'd catch back up and kind of show these little pieces, kind of show the structure of what I did to make them, and then kind of talk to you a little bit about installing them and how do I set my bumps up. So, cut all this stuff out, do this on CAD first, and then cut all these out on my plasma table. As you can see, there's separate pieces. Everything was keyed and slotted. So this middle even's got key and slot, all of these. There's a couple just small inside welds that kind of hold it together, and then everything's welded on the outside. But mainly this middle piece is to add structure. The bump, you know, is going to hit right in the middle of the pad, and if you don't have any sort of internal gusset in these end up just denting over time. So I have on my personal truck something like this, not as big, but it's dented in, and then I've put plate over top of it and welded it to build it back up. But starting on this one, we don't want this one to dent. So it's double 3/16 on the top. I even, I cut another little pad and welded it right to the top, so it's 3/8 thick on the top. We've got 3 little gussets on it, and I've got one all set up here ready to be tacked in. So that's kind of what you can see what I was going for. I wanted that bump to be hitting a lot flatter versus hitting on the angle of the beam that's right there. So I just kind of measured, got the angle, it was 20 degrees, and made up these little guys. So I'll go ahead now and I can weld this thing all the way around. And then also the bump is placed. This is just held in magnets right now. The bump is placed, and then I'll come in here, I'll tack weld this thing, I'll tack weld the can, and then I'll start working on making the tie-in plates. There's going to be plates going from here to the back, probably here to that front of that mount. So that's kind of what I'm doing now. So I have this beam is all the way up at bump with the shock on it. So if you look in here on the shock, these are some Fox 2.5 internal bypass coilovers. And they have the rubber bumpers on them, and these are 3/4 of an inch. So what I like to do to set my bumps and set my shocks and bump location is just literally put the shock in here, and then I don't have a bypass on here because it's just in my way of where I'm working right here. And these are, I built these the same way. So both of these shocks cycle in the right place. This is a 14-inch. This front one's a 16-inch. So that's how, if you're ever doing anything staggered like this, the one closer to your frame pivot needs to be a shorter length stroke. And then the one further from the pivot is going to need to be a longer stroke. So 14-inch shock with a 16-inch shock they both at bump are just touching that rubber bumper. And then what I like to do, so you got 3/4 of an inch that this shock technically can still go in more. Obviously, it's got that rubber bumper, so it's going to squish that quite a bit. And then I'll come over here to the bump, and you can see the bump is only got that O-ring before it bottoms out. And then it's got this pad, which they have a little bit of flex to them, not a ton. But you can see we've got at most maybe about 1/4 inch of, not even 1/4 inch, but 1/8 of an inch maybe with that O-ring of upward movement before this thing will be actually fully bottomed out. So that's kind of how I set them. I don't mind using a little bit of this orange bumper. I don't necessarily like to set them to where you account for that 3/4 and, and then like you try to raise this up or put a gap in here. I like my bump to bump out and then squish somewhere in the middle of that rubber bumper. That's what those are for. I don't want to be hitting that hard. That's what the bump stop's for. This is meant for taking the abuse on the hard hits. Holding the truck up for when we don't have enough spring or enough shock for whatever we decided to point our truck and run it through. So anyways, I'm gonna, grab the GoPro and set it back up in my welder because I am all ready to weld these in. And I'm pretty pumped to get these welded in. I think they turned out pretty slick, pretty cool. For some reason, like making little parts is like just as fun as making big parts. Like this whole beam, even though I have like days and weeks and months into making these, like this is just as fun to make because it's so tiny. But anyways, let's weld them on. Taking a quick break from working on the bumps and coming over and checking my machine. I've been running these link tabs and running the machine in the background while I'm working on the Chevy. And I've been needing to check my coolant with my refractometer. I need to check the concentration level of my mix. And I don't know if this would be interesting or not, but I figure what the heck, I'll throw it in here and show you what I'm doing. So I got a little bit of coolant in here. Throw it on there. For this coolant, the mixture is supposed to be, the reading is supposed to be 1.04%. So then we'll flip this around, look in there, and I'm getting about a little under 2%. Let's see if I can pull you in here. I probably wasn't even in the screen there. Let's see here. Wow, whoa. All right, can you kind of see that faint line on the 2? It's barely on there. I think the coolant's kind of dripping out, but it's at 2%. So I actually need to add a little bit of water. The tank's a little low. It evaporates, over time from the coolant tank. Just that's how water works. And so I'm gonna probably put like 5-10 gallons in there. That'll probably bring it down to the 1%, and my mixture will be right from there. So then that's using a refractometer to check coolant concentrate, and it's Brix, B-R-I-X. That's the percentage that it needs to be. That's what that refractometer is reading in there. So I don't know if that's interesting or all, but I had to stop and take a break from working on beam stuff to do that. So I figured if I'm doing it, you're doing it too. So back to the beams.